Hey folks, our friends over at Sunset Lake CBD have a new release just in time for Labor Day barbecues and backyard hangouts. And you're going to want to relax this Labor Day. And you can do so by enjoying their, both their lifted teas, but also you may want to try their new lifted tea microdose. Each can has 1 milligram of THC and 5 milligrams of fast-acting CBD, so you will start feeling it in around 20 minutes. The low dose means you can have a few cans and feel a booze-free bliss. They come in two flavors. Original, the classic black iced tea, zesty lemon, and just a hint of mango. That's my favorite. And mint green, a refreshing mix of sencha green tea and a refreshing spearmint. Both are naturally sweetened with Vermont honey from a fourth-generation family farm. I love these lifted teas. They go down so easy and they're great to relax. I cannot wait to have one this evening. And they pair nicely with other, relaxation mechanisms as well. This Labor Day weekend, time to take your relaxation seriously. And using Sunset Lake CBD also means that you would be purchasing a product from a company you can feel good about. Sunset Lake pays their workers a $22 minimum wage. They have helped support refugee resettlement, strike funds, other fundraisers that the Majority Report has sometimes matched the funds for and collaborated with them on. They use regenerative farming practices and no pesticides. So this is not junk, CBD. This is the real deal. And here is the deal, folks. Buy any 3 4-packs and you get a 4th one for free. Just add 4 4-packs to your cart and use the code LABORDAY25, no spaces, LABORDAY25 at checkout. Skip the beer and avoid the hangover while still enjoying the party with lifted tea. This promotion ends September 1st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Head over to sunsetlakecbd.com for terms and conditions. And now, time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, August 29th, 2025. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Brendan James of the Blowback Podcast joins us to recap this week in news. And also, later in the show, comedian Amanda Seales will be back with us to talk about her Jubilee appearance, the right wing, Zionism, and more. Also on the program, Trump and RFK Jr.'s firing of the CDC head leads to 4 senior officials resigning in protest and a massive walkout of CDC workers at the CDC headquarters. The replacement for the CDC head? Well, RFK Jr.'s anti-vax second-in-command, of course. A close collaborator and longtime high person in the Peter Thiel corporate world. Worked directly for him, basically. We'll get into that with Brendan, I think. RFK Jr. will testify in front of a Senate panel next week as Congress reconvenes. The de minimis exemption on tariffs and duties for goods worth less than $800 is expiring today. Lots of implications for increased prices, because that exemption has been in place for quite a while in some form or another. Trump cancels Kamala Harris's security detail. Yes. Pettiness is strength in America, apparently. Prosecutors were forced to reduce the charges against the man who threw a sandwich at an ICE officer, allegedly.
Hey, report to jury duty, folks.
Yeah.
You can come through in the clutch like that jury did.
A jury nullification. Well, it wasn't actually a jury. The prosecutors were so pathetic that they had to refile the charge as a misdemeanor instead of a felony because they knew it wouldn't stand.
Oh, I thought the felonies were rejected, but anyway.
I could be wrong.
That's one reason why you show up for jury duty either
Exactly.
way.
Either way.
So you can say, like, look, I'm not persuaded by this evidence. And that you don't need to say anything more than that.
The city of Atlanta's turned communist. They actually, this is a great news. First city-run grocery store opening today, an effort to address food deserts. Jared Kushner is back in the fold. He was at Trump's meeting yesterday with Tony Blair about a Gaza Riviera rebuild plan. That included Israeli official Ron Dermer. The Palestinians have no say in their future, apparently. Gaza's famine, man-made by Israel, continues to worsen. The minimum who have starved to death right now in terms of the total is 322. Moderate Democratic Representative Deborah Ross of North Carolina says she will not take AIPAC money this cycle. Tides are turning. Nearly 1,000 worker over billionaire protests are scheduled in all 50 states for Labor Day. And lastly, Trump's education department accuses Denver of violating federal law for having gender-neutral bathrooms in their schools. All this and more on today's Majority Report. We have reached Friday, my friends. We are here. Welcome to the show, everybody. Sam will be back on Tuesday. We have a Labor Day special like we have every year that we will be releasing, but we will be back in person on Tuesday. We'll get into this CDC stuff, which is really the biggest news of the day with Brendan. But I wanted to start here because we didn't get to this earlier this week, but I find this fascinating to see how the Republicans are starting to be in a defensive crouch. They are concerned and are getting numbers that are not good on a variety of Trump's different actions. The big, beautiful bill is the first one here. Trump said this earlier this week at the White House about how they need to rebrand the One Big Beautiful Bill, which would indicate that the internals are pretty bad. And we'll show you how even public data shows what the polling is. But the fact that Trump is saying this means people are starting to get really pissed once they understand the implications, and the implications start to be felt. Here he is earlier this week on why they have to start calling it something different.
So the bill that, I'm not going to use the term great, big, beautiful, that was good for getting it approved, but it's not good for explaining to people what it's all about. It's a massive tax cut for the middle class. It's a massive tax cut for jobs. And it's, I mean, think of it, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. So seniors, I don't know how you can vote for anybody else. And, just think of that, and no tax on overtime. So you work overtime, you don't have to pay tax on overtime. That's good. The Democrats don't know what they're gonna do. So they have like this soundbite. They have all these sound bites. They send it out, I don't know, some guy sends out a word and everybody uses it, including the fake news. Some of you are here right now, I'm looking at you. And it's death. They use the word death. No, it's actually life. It's almost like a newborn life. It's not death. That's their soundbite. The bill is death.
The bill is death. I wish that was the soundbite.
It literally is. Yeah.
I mean,
it's going to kill people.
Not to joke about it entirely, because we know what the implications are of this horrific bill, and people understand that as well.
Raising the amount of time and space people need to travel, say, after they have a heart attack in a rural area, that's what's going to happen here. You're going to have people's lives cut short.
There are estimates that this could result in the closure of nearly half of all rural hospitals, meaning that, as Matt says, people are going to have to drive. They maybe already had to drive 45 minutes to the nearest hospital, and now that's going to be an hour and a half. And it won't just result in people's deaths, say if they have a health emergency or something to that effect. It will also have an impact on preventative care, because people won't be seeking care because they don't have the ability to take 3 hours out of their day or plus
Less easy to do checkups, everything.
to drive. The Medicaid figures show that like around 17 million people are likely to lose insurance. The CBO estimates that up to, I think, 11 plus million people will be insured by 2034 because of the Medicaid cuts, and let alone the fact that when you look at the final analysis of the tax cuts, the people in the lowest income brackets are going to be paying more in the final say of things. And this is also the biggest cut in the history of SNAP, the food assistance program. Almost 200 hospitals, here it is, are at risk of immediate closure because of these cuts. So, Labor Guy 420 says the bill is death is an amazing drop. Maybe we should pull that, because it describes it accurately. These are the numbers from a few weeks ago now, 2 or so weeks ago in Pew Research, showing the approval rating for this horrific bill. Trump's job approval stands at 38%, 60% disapprove. To hit that in your first year of your administration, 60% disapproval is not good. You're like in Bush 2007 areas here.
Yeah, geez, only 11 strongly approve of the BBB.
I mean, that's like...
Even your psychos?
Yes, even the psychos don't like it. Here it is. 39% strongly disapprove, 22%. Can you scroll so I can see
The one you're reading is for terrorists.
Okay, I can't see it on the screen. Let me look here. This is the one. Yeah. The budget and tax law. Okay. 33% strongly disapprove, 13% somewhat, 21% somewhat approve, 11%. So that's basically 46 to 32, and 23 are unsure. But that was 2 weeks ago, and more people are going to get sure as they learn more, and this rolls out. The fact that he has to rebrand it already shows they're concerned, and he's sending out J.D. Vance all across the country. He was in Georgia. He's going to different places. One, to put pressure on these states to gerrymander even more. Two, though, to sell this horrific legislation to the population that's going to be immiserated by it. And I do appreciate the tradition of these like elderly sociopaths like him and Biden giving their VP the worst jobs possible and offsetting all of their political problems onto them. Like Biden giving Kamala the fix immigration issue. Go
It's
down
sort of
to
like
the border.
meat shields, like for the president. I mean, Dick Cheney's the only one that sort of turned the president into his shield.
Yes, and you, at the very least, you have to respect him for that level of creativity of turning that on its head. But now he's doing this with J.D. Vance. Go out and sell this deeply unpopular bill to the public. And Mike Johnson is concerned about his House majority. Now he's being deployed to sell the crime narrative and the crackdown on cities, which there was a Quinnipiac poll yesterday showing something like 56% of Americans already disapprove of Trump's actions in D.C. and deploying the National Guard for this purpose. If he tries with Chicago, these numbers are going to keep getting worse because it's ridiculous and everyone sees it. And despite what Trump may think, people don't like authoritarianism in America. And I still have faith that despite them rigging the rules in this way, that Democrats and independent voters still have like a cultural understanding that we are not about kings and authoritarians and maybe fascists, but we don't like that kind of action if it comes home to America. So those numbers, I think, will still keep getting worse for him. But Mike Johnson has to try to change that. Here he is on Fox News this morning, and they played a clip of Gavin Newsom pointing out that, what'd you say?
It's in here.
Yeah, pointing out that crime is higher in Louisiana than in California, and which is Mike Johnson's home state, and he has to deflect a bit.
But he name-dropped you personally yesterday, essentially trying to say that crime is worse in Louisiana than it is in California. Take a listen. We'll get your thoughts.
If he is to invest in crime suppression, I hope the President of the United States would look at the facts. Just consider Speaker Johnson's state and district. Just look at the murder rate. That's nearly 4 times higher than California's in Louisiana.
Have at it.
Again, Gavin Newsom will do anything for attention. He can name drop me all that he wants. He needs to go and govern his state and not be engaging in all of this. Look, we have crime in
Can you
cities
pause it?
across
He needs to go govern it. He's not governing his state by pointing out he's doing a better job than your state. Give me a
Engaging
break.
in all of this criticism of me that is
Yes.
on the same lines as I'm extending on him.
I mean, that critique would have been more valid when the dude was podcasting with Charlie Kirk, but that's when Mike Johnson likes that.
Right.
Yeah, like,
Also, the idea that like a name drop, Gavin Newsom has so much more public recognition than Mike. Most people don't know who
Yes.
Mike
Chasing.
Johnson is.
Mike Johnson.
His Pee Wee Herman makeup.
Yeah, go back to worrying about your son's porn intake and maybe like figure out the fact that you don't have a bank account or something like that. I mean, this guy's almost like incognito man by design. He's the most invisible servant of God that we have in Congress. And
Clout chasing.
yeah, like to his credit, he was able to, Chuck Schumer was rolled by him in like the big beautiful bill thing, where he thought that the margins would be so slim in the House that they would be infighting, but Mike Johnson kept basically the whole caucus together
In a way that the Democrats couldn't.
So I'm not trying to say he's ineffective in that way, but as like a speaker on behalf of the Republican Party, I mean, everyone's already falling asleep, but keep going.
But also they're more authoritarian party.
Yeah.
We want to keep with that clip. Or we wanna
Well,
go
he
to the-
basically just deflects.
It continues into this next clip.
And so then he had to go on CNN. He was on Good Morning America this morning. They're panicked. He was on Fox News, now making the rounds, and CNN is a little bit more diligent here in pressing him on this point.
Sometimes local governance does not do the job, and the oversight in D.C. is long overdue.
Was going to ask when you might be calling for the National Guard in Shreveport, which is, you have part of your district is Shreveport. The FBI statistics, actually violent crime per 100,000 residents higher in Shreveport last year than Washington, D.C. Whoopsie.
There's a lot of good work that's been done. There's a lot of reasons for that, but we have a Democrat DA there who has not been prosecuting crime as some other more aggressive DAs have around the country. Soros funded that individual to be elected. But I'll say that, it's an urban area that has a lot of problems that are happening around the country, and we have to address it.
So would the Guard help? If the Guard can help in D.C., the President has said he wants to send the Guard to
Wait,
Chicago
wait,
and other
whoa.
places. Why not Shreveport?
Hold on,
I don't know.
hold
That's
on,
not
hold on,
my
hold on.
call.
What is Berman doing with that follow-up?
What the media does, and this is how we got to be the #1 jailer of humanity on earth, the United States of America. Because, yeah, he accepts the premises.
We didn't get to this yesterday, but Brandon Johnson went on Morning Joe. And Joe Scarborough had like 3 or 4 follow-ups about like, would you hire more cops? Brandon Johnson is going through a list of how violent crime has precipitously dropped, and they want to continue with their community investment efforts and like doing what they've been doing, which has been effective. And yet Scarborough would not let up over and over again. What is this follow-up? What do you mean the National Guard would help with the non-existent problem that you're presenting us? Insanity. Keep going.
I'll say that it's an urban area that has a lot of problems that are happening around the country, and we have to address it.
So would the Guard help? If the Guard can help in D.C., the President has said he wants to send the Guard to Chicago and other places. Why not Shreveport?
I don't know. That's not my call.
Would you
it may
ask
be
him for that?
necessary. Well, I don't know. Let's take one city at a time and see. We have to address the crime problem in any city where it is.
Can you
it's
pause
a problem like that.
So it's
Particularly
it's just whatever. We're good, but it's just like the right question would be is why are you not calling on the National Guard to go to Shreveport, and why are you like not saying would it help and making the case that they should do that? You should call out the hypocrisy without making a positive case for the National Guard. I know media critique is easy, but it's just like this is how these fascistic ideas get normalized. When you treat it as ho-hum, this is the idea, the kind of thing we should seriously think about.
All these cities had massively higher crime 20 years ago. I mean, maybe not all of them, Tuti, but the ones that are talked about, like
Yes.
D.C. or Chicago or New York. And it wasn't appropriate to bring in the National Guard then either.
Right.
The things to do with crime are like we know
Cost
how
of
to
living.
exactly. We know what drives this stuff up. We know what drove it up quickly, and because all those things were exacerbated under COVID. Like,
But they
it's not cops.
It's not. But the point is that they are. It's not cops. It's cost of living. It's people's desperation. You think people want to be criminals in their heart of hearts? Of course, there are people who are like organized criminals, and in fact, many of them are in the Trump administration right now. And they're people who are like the true crooks, abusing society, ransacking it for their own enrichment. But the people that are desperate and are committing crimes like this, and this is not violent crime, but it also has to do with like lack of healthcare services and mental health. And sometimes violent crime leads to like street gang or desperation leads to street gangs and modes of like creating an informal economy because our economy isn't working for those people, and that can lead to violence. That's how this is addressed.
People were stealing detergent
Yes.
for the resale value during COVID. Like this, that's a country failing.
Yeah. And obviously we don't even need to mention this. Violent crime is down nearly 11% compared to 2024 when there was already a precipitous drop in violent crime. So when they talk about crime in cities, it's a way to appeal to a base of white people who are afraid of their own shadow and who feel validated in their like kind of view of liberal degeneracy from suburbia. And it is nothing more than racist dog whistling that should be treated as such in our press, because everything that they're doing around this flies in the face of all of the available data. And they choose to focus on specific cities, often run by black people or predominantly black in blue areas, because they are sending a message, not just to the Nazis, but to their base of support that is fundamentally fairly antisocial and believes that the most important thing that our political system provides them is low taxes on their suburban homes that are walled off from the rest of the hordes that they don't want associated with them unless they're working for them.
Philly, with their progressive DA Larry Krasner, has a notable drop in homicide rate in the lowest, reaching the lowest level in decades, and the largest decline in gun violence among major U.S. cities.
There you go. In a moment, we will be talking to Brendan James, but first, a word from some of our sponsors. Busy schedules and the last days of summer plans are sometimes overwhelming, and you may just have a couple of minutes, and it could be tempting to break down and just like pick up fast food. I've been there, but then your stomach hurts, you feel like crap, especially as I'm getting older. It's like, I can't eat the way I wanted to. It's not just booze, food's affecting me now. God damn it. Well, Factor makes it a lot easier for me, with smarter, tasty, chef-prepped meals that are dietitian approved and delivered right to my door. And now with more than 65 weekly meals made for how I live and what I like to eat, I have even more ways to fit in a real meal wherever the day takes me. We want to thank Factor, a HelloFresh company, for supporting the Majority Report. Go to factormeals.com/majority50off and use code majority50off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Factor has this great grilled kind of chicken pesto thing that I've been really enjoying. My husband liked this like a cheesy like meat thing that we got. I don't like cheese, so I didn't eat it, but he seemed to really enjoy it. But this morning I had some of their smoothies. that I got. They're a really easy on the go snack as well, and gets my morning started off right. So I recommend it very highly. Those smoothies too are awesome, including the meals. More variety, more meals. Choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. Savor global flavors. Try Asian-inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. Feel the difference no matter your routine. Eat smart at factormeals.com/majority50off and use code majority50off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code majority50off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. The link will be down below in the YouTube and video description. Again, that's factormeals.com/majority50off and use code majority50off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. We have a word from another one of our sponsors, but you will hear from Sam, and then we will be joined by Brendan James.
Hey, folks. Years ago, I noticed that I was starting to shed a little bit too much. At first it was started wait a second. Well, why is the drain getting clogged up? And then I noticed it in towels. And then I started to freak out because I'm getting up there and I want to keep my hair, but I didn't want to take any drugs that had all sorts of side effects. So instead, I started to take Nutrafol, and I have had some great results. I'm seeing tiny little new hairs come up, and much less in my towel in particular. Nutrafol, it's not just hype, folks. It is physician formulated, it is clinically tested, and it's even recommended by dermatologists. Nutrafol, in fact, is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand. It is trusted by over 1.5 million people, including me. You can feel great about what you're putting into your body since Nutrafol hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and NSF Content Certified, which is the gold standard in third-party certification for supplements. And what Nutrafol does, it doesn't just rely on ingredient studies, it actually clinically tests its final formula. And they use a bunch of different hair measurement tools, hair counts, pull tests, etc., to assess growth, quality, shedding, and texture. Check it out. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is super easy. It works. Both men and women have success with this. Emma and I both know women who have had a lot of success with Nutrafol. And you can see thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol offering you $10 off your first month subscription, free shipping. When you go to Nutrafol.com, enter the promo code TMR10. Find out why Nutrafol is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand at Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code TMR10. That's all one word, or no spaces is my point. TMR10, TMR10. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code TMR10. Put more in the link in the podcast and YouTube description. Now back to Emma.
We are back, and I'm so happy to be joined by Brendan James, host of the Blowback podcast, which I cannot recommend more highly. It's phenomenal. All of the seasons are wonderful listens, and I can't wait to see what you guys have in store next. Brendan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Great to see you. Let's just start right here. The Casual Fridays, we're recapping this week in news, and it feels like maybe the biggest story of the week, at least domestically, is really hitting a fever pitch today. This CDC purge here. Trump has been really escalating his firing of these government officials. I mean, this was just this month. He fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics in response to unemployment data that was not good for him. He then has tried to, earlier this week, remove the Federal Reserve governor. And now he is gutting the CDC senior leadership over basically vaccine policy. So this the head of the CDC resigned because basically they were pushing her out. And now the rumored replacement is this guy, Jim O'Neill. So Jim O'Neill was previously the CEO of Peter Thiel's Thiel Foundation. He was the managing director for Peter Thiel's Clarium Capital. He was a part of the Peter Thiel Fellowship and co-founder. And his Twitter account is still public. So we get these wonderfully just intellectual thoughts like this about science and medicine. He's tweeted this in November 2021. Remember, the name COVID was chosen to conceal the origin of the virus. This name makes it harder to study and probably slowed the response. What is your theory on that? Is it too many letters for him or something?
Does he well, the thing he's quoting says SARS in it. Does he want to call, like, because it's...
Oh, he's quoting himself. Yes.
Yeah.
Lynn
He's saying COVID and SARS were both coded to hide the Chinese origin.
Understood. So it should have just been China virus. This is
my thing with this whole sort of new, influx of guys like this is they've won already. Like Trump calls it the China virus pretty often. Right. He calls it that already, but they won't take a win. They have to keep complaining or set up this idea that there is still, I don't know, some kind of shadow government that's preventing them from getting everything that they want. So we need to pretend it's not already called the China virus by the president, but he already does that.
It's the same people that wouldn't let Obama say radical Islamic terror.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And speaking of that person, she is now the director of national intelligence. Tulsi Gabbard was the Democrat that was really holding Obama accountable on not saying it.
Yeah, you have to say China virus now. I don't know a lot about this guy. Is there a well of stuff coming up about him now that people are looking
for W?
Yeah, the Guardian has a good write-up here. Monterez, this is the woman who was fired, who was confirmed by the Senate as CDC director less than a month ago, was viewed by agency staff and outside experts as someone who could potentially help moderate Kennedy's anti-vaccine agenda. O'Neill, unlike Monterez, has no training in medicine or infectious disease science. He's a former speechwriter for the health department during the Bush years, who went on to work for the tech investor and conservative mega donor Peter Thiel. During the COVID pandemic, O'Neill voiced public support for unproven treatments that were not supported by scientific evidence, including ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, as well as vitamin D as a supposed prophylaxis, which, take vitamin D, take supplements, not going to help you not get COVID.
Well, that's just what you say. He's the new authority on this. So, I don't know who to believe, but yeah, I don't know. Is it like this has been interesting too, seeing the rise of this sort of woo-woo right wing, and obviously RFK Jr. is the embodiment of all of that. I haven't been I haven't really been. That's the thing that almost is the most dystopian to me of the whole thing right now. As far as domestic politics is concerned, because there is this sort of suicide drive that seems to be at play, where they want to get rid of medicine. Like proper medicine. And even the most, the W. Bush administration, they had like pandemic plans set in place. I think there was an article about that in the past few years of it was a fairly robust plan. There were real attempts, however ideologically, warped things were in the Bush administration, or even Trump 1. There was this idea that the government is responsible for making sure you don't die of a disease. And that being out the window is to me what has felt the most transformative, because there's always been the, Hoover Institution guys and wanting to slash, public services and war and go to war and stuff. But this is the most sort of freakish new outgrowth that I've, at least to me. So
Well,
I don't know anything about this guy, but he's obviously seems to be in line with that. If he's telling you to take, like a B1 if you want to prevent yourself from getting the next from bird flu or whatever.
I mean, he's literally a biotech investor. I mean, I feel like that's the new thing now with the right. Is like we have the Heritage Foundation stuff and Project 2025, which seem to be pretty accurate prediction of their agenda. And that still is going to exist even after Trump's gone. And I don't know, it's interesting to see how that is just going to combine like a cyborg with this Silicon Valley psycho shit.
Yeah, that's a great point. And there's so much money on that side of things, like the tech biology almost world, where these cranks are calling the shots. And you have, RFK's independent campaign bid was subsidized by his supposed vice presidential pick, who was the ex-wife of a former Google executive who had
Sergey Brin, yeah.
What'd you say?
Sergey Brin.
Sergey Brin, right, who had a crap ton of money, and she was like, that was the big, impetus behind his ability to really even like bankroll this kind of thing. And so there's so much. I would argue that it's the anti-intellectualism and anti-peer review element that is most enticing to the capitalists that are behind this, because take the Theranos lady, for example. She's notorious, but her story is not unique. These are like these tech people that want to get into the field of, say, biomedicine or health, that don't want like the cumbersome government regulations that would tell you whether or not this product is, say, effective or good, to get in the way of them making a bunch of money. And RFK is a great vehicle for that, because he's a crank enough to like truly believe, I think, what he says, but it fits very nicely with a libertarian agenda about healthcare.
Yeah, I think I suppose that's the clear, if you like, ideological link there is all of these, as you say, crank or holistic stuff that has come out of the RFK Jr. wing of the Trump coalition, is stuff that they don't want to be regulated, and they don't want to be gummed up by scientists or government bureaucrats determining whether it's good or bad for you. And that's part and parcel of everything else that they want to reorganize now. So I guess that is the explanation for it. I'm curious how quickly that will be repaired, on the other side of this, because that's always what I think is there, whether it's institutions of, like USAID or all the stuff that Doge took apart. I keep thinking, if there is a Democratic administration after this, how easy will it be for them, and how much will they expend the effort to repair all that? And I wonder with the damage being done to HHS as well, how much this can be reversed and how quickly.
And I would say that the popular support behind it, where like you look at RFK, and much to my chagrin, he's maybe the best polling figure in the administration at this moment. And it's because he at least talks about an issue that people are anxious about. I mean, I've long maintained that his appeal is that he exploits the anxiety people have about their healthcare and gives them these like bespoke market-based solutions of buy this supplement, do this within your personal control, that makes them feel empowered when they really aren't. And let's pull up 8 here. This was from earlier this week. This is RFK talking about what he sees at the airport. And like, I mean, I think this clip more than many underscores how this guy views disease, or views abnormalities, or views even obesity or Down syndrome or autism. Like, remember he said that stuff about how people with autism like can't vote or they'll
never pay taxes.
It's not based in anything except, in my view, like a pretty scary eugenicist disgust for folks. Listen to how he talks about kids he sees in the airport.
And I know what a healthy child is supposed to look like. I'm looking at kids as I walk through the airports today.
What's a healthy man supposed to sound like?
I was about to say go on.
No, I mean, talk about glass houses. Again, this is the talking catcher's mitt who sounds like his voice is in a blender speaking about health for everybody.
And I know what a healthy child is supposed to look like. I'm looking at kids as I walk through the airports today, as I walk down the street, and I see these kids that are just overburdened with mitochondrial challenges, with inflammation. You can tell from their faces, from their body movements, and from their lack of social connection. And I know that that's not how our children are supposed to look. And I know what
they should look like me.
Those mitochondrial challenges and social like that's just do you know
how
what
can you
he's
observe
getting?
that in the airport? The kids are both inflamed and don't have friends, and RFK can tell you that based on what?
Who has friends at the airport?
Yeah.
From looking at them from every child, passing through the gate, he is just studying them up and down, I guess. I mean, he says stuff like this a lot, doesn't he? Where he's like, it's always like, I see kids now, and just by looking at them, I know that, I don't know, that they've taken the vaccine or whatever. But it's, yeah, I mean, I saw this go around. This is like the Laura Loomer thing where she was saying, we're paying too much for foreigners, particularly Palestinians, to come over here and get surgeries. And my buddy Felix Biederman, raised the question, should she really be the one deciding how many surgeries is appropriate? Same with RFK Jr. It's just like, I can never believe this is the guy. And what you say about he's the perfect sort of candidate for this, because he says there's a problem, and then the solution is a bunch of deregulation and hokum, but people do feel as though he is just talking about something apolitical, health. He's talking about something that both the Democrats and Republicans, they neither will admit there's a problem, and I don't know if he's really running policy. It seems like he is to a certain extent. But the idea of, we're going to talk about the Medicaid stuff, I guess, like that's just an old mission to bring all that crashing down. And he is this kind of, I think to a lot of people, just, apolitical kook that is just, I don't know if he's charismatic. He's certainly not.
I wouldn't say that.
He's not telegenic or audiogenic or whatever, but he's definitely I think he strikes people, like you say, as someone who might be a little weird, but he's not talking in any kind of like politicized language. He just says we need to make our kids better, and everyone goes, well, I don't know in the vaccine, because frankly, I'm not a doctor. I just believe like all the sheeple that he's wagging his finger at. I just believe the government authorities when they say we have a vaccine and you should take it. So as soon as you spark a little bit of doubt in that, drop big pharma in your speeches, every now and again, I think you've won people's trust just by default, because, everyone else seems like such a crook compared to the kook in the room at this point,
I think the plane comment airport comment is so revealing, because that's the only time he's ever around normal people.
Exactly.
When he has to fly. And it reminded me of this Kenneth Copeland clip from Inside Edition, where they asked him why he bought Tyler Perry's plane, and he says he needs to fly private because he can't get in a tube with a bunch of demons.
Yeah.
Do you ever use your private jets to go visit your vacation homes, for example?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Again, getting back to the comment, you said that you don't like to fly commercial because you don't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. Do you really believe that human beings are demons?
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did. We wrestle not with flesh and blood.
Oof.
Yeah.
I mean, that little eye thing he did was pretty demonic to me. I mean, I don't know.
That was, I mean, at least there's some energy there. RFK, every time I see him now, he's like one step closer, to just melting down, and his body's going to shut down. Like, I don't know. I'm ready to let her rip. Let's just see how it goes. The fact that bird flu has not like unleashed yet is still shocking to me. I don't know if that's just, I know we're not testing for it as much anymore.
Right.
So there's probably some level of like intentional or unintentional cover up of that. But yeah, this guy in charge during an outbreak of any kind is pretty terrifying.
Well, I think it's probably in many ways people behind the scenes that are still there, that are working probably way harder for the exact same pay, deeply understaffed, who are like trying their hardest to keep their profession and the work of the agency together with duct tape and gum. And, we saw that a little bit in the wake of those horrible floods in Texas, where like the nationally they did get out some of the warnings in time, which a lot of people were speculating that may not be the case given the cuts. It was just good old Republican politics down in Texas that caused the deaths, the lack of infrastructure and
let's not pay $3,000 for a siren.
Right, that they were warned about in previous national disasters down there. But you mentioned the AI thing. I just want to touch on it really quickly, and then we'll get to Israel-Palestine, because I headlined this yesterday, but I really think it deserves a little bit more attention. There was an article in the New York Times, again, that came out yesterday morning, speaking about how there's now this pilot program that the administration is using in 6 states that would use AI to determine whether or not certain programs will be covered by Medicare. Now, if this sounds familiar to people, you might have heard the story of one Luigi Mangione. I don't know if AI was a part of declining care for him, or if it was just, the normal bureaucratic incentives of a health insurer. But this is what, like, they're trying to do this for basically a government program here, which is deeply concerning. I'll just read a little bit of this. The article opens kind of talking about this 74-year-old woman who is facing concerns that she's going to be getting these denials. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services plan to begin a pilot program that would involve a similar review process for traditional Medicare. And this is comparing it to private companies doing this. The federal insurance program for people 65 and older, as well as for many younger people with disabilities. The pilot would start in 6 states next year, including Oklahoma, where Miss Ayers lives. The federal government plans to hire private companies to use artificial intelligence to determine whether patients would be covered for some procedure, like certain spinal surgeries or steroid injections. Similar algorithms used by insurers have been the subject of several high-profile lawsuits, which have asserted that the technology allowed the companies to swiftly deny large batches of claims and cut patients off from care and rehabilitation facilities. The AI companies selected to oversee the program would have a strong financial incentive to deny claims. Medicare plans to pay them a share of the savings generated from rejections. The government said the AI screening tool would focus narrowly on about a dozen procedures, which it has determined to be costly and little to no benefit to patients. Well, I mean, if the Trump administration says there's little to no benefit to patients, I guess we should just believe them. This is horrifying. Medicare is immensely important.
Remember death panels?
This is a death panel. This is AI death panels. This is what they were talking about. Another freaking instance of goddamn conservative projection coming right back around. This is what they're trying to do.
There was a book a couple years back called Automating Inequality, I think it was called. The author was, I believe her name was Virginia Eubanks. And the book is basically about, mostly in social services and policing, the introduction of technology that I don't know if it was AI or it was thought of as AI at the time, but essentially in the name of efficiency and a more sort of constructive and accurate system to either police or manage, databases and, allocate the resources for social work, that things got way, way worse in the cases that she observed in certain states that were tinkering around with this stuff. And that's what I was thinking of when I was reading the article that you just were reading from. I mean, it's obviously going to be declared in the name of a more efficient and speedier and therefore more effective set of procedures. But you have the profit motive at play, obviously, now inside of what is supposed to be a government, profit-free set of services and systems. But then you also have just what we now is almost a punchline of AI being this, wherever it's been, flourishing lately, it's a disaster. I mean, the idea that that'll be applied to people's assessment of whether they need spinal surgery or not is next level.
The financial incentive to deny care of like insurers just basically being through the use of technology inserted into the already completely threadbare social safety net that we have. It's dystopian. But Brendan, while we have you here, obviously, as I wax poetically about the Blowback podcast, you have an intricate understanding of the depravity of our foreign policy and the establishment that goes along with it. And you did a wonderful season on the Iraq War, and one of the many villains of that war was one Tony Blair. Now, Tony Blair is reportedly working with Jared Kushner at Trump's direction. Kushner's back. Remember when he was telling a bunch of Harvard people about all the real estate possibilities in Gaza like over a year ago, and now Trump is saying the exact same thing? Curious. So apparently Kushner and Blair are working together on this Gaza rebuilding plan, and the meeting also included a senior Israeli official. Because the only democracy in the Middle East, in heavy air quotes, wants to impose a government upon a people that they will have no say in because democracy.
Yeah, I ever since that whole idea was floated, I mean, I'd love to see them try this. I don't know if it's just something they're saying. I mean, it's obviously a very Trump style line, that we're going to turn it into a beautiful, whatever, like seaside development. I can't imagine. I mean, what, we're going to introduce American troops to secure a joint Israeli-American redevelopment of Gaza? Doesn't seem likely to me. And if that happened, that would be like, I mean, he got a little bit of flack even from the right for striking Iran. I mean, I can't imagine anyone, at least from the perspective of public opinion or even his coalition, being okay with following through on the idea of committing American lives in Gaza. But Blair being attached is never a good sign. And
can you give people some background on his role in the Middle East?
Yeah, I mean, the Iraq War is probably the most significant place to start. He was the prime minister. It was sort of already the Clinton of the Labor Party in the 90s and then early 2000s. It was called New Labor, which was the idea that we need to get with the times and stop doing as much socialism or sort of Fabian British social democracy and start to privatize and start to deregulate and things that that was sort of matching up with what Clinton and the Democratic Party were doing here. But he's most infamous and became incredibly unpopular for becoming Bush's lapdog with Afghanistan and Iraq. And so some of the kookiest and most embarrassingly fake intelligence meant to justify the Iraq War actually came from British dossiers, including one that was claiming there were little green vials of deadly chemicals that was clearly lifted from a scene in the movie The Rock with Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery. That was overseen by Tony Blair, not to mention the actual commitment of British troops and the selling of the war in general and the management of the war. So he has the Iraq War on his record. He also sort of was a part of rehabilitating Muammar Gaddafi before we rehabilitated him when he was for a second there an ally in the war on terror. Blair did some consulting for Gaddafi, and Gaddafi ended up going on like British shows talking about his little green book or whatever. Obviously, what came after Gaddafi in Libya was worse, but Blair's there for whatever largely evil and nefarious project or client in the Middle East. So it does not surprise me that, I mean, it kind of actually surprised me to hear his name, but it doesn't surprise me that he'd be involved in something like the American proposals for Gaza at this point.
How could it possibly be implemented? I mean, I'm not trying to downplay the horror of what they're proposing, but I mean, we're seeing real issues internally within Israel right now. We reported this yesterday, but like, these poor reservists are exhausted from helping commit genocide, and they're like just not showing up. And there are talks about fatigue among the IDF, and there have been, I think, like suicides. And so internally in Israel, Netanyahu is going to have a problem trying to get these reservists to do the ground invasion of Gaza City, which he's been ramping up to for quite a while. Like, how can Israel sustain this level of barbarity on so many different fronts? Not just, of course, in Gaza. They're annexing the West Bank as we speak, and they're bombing Syria, and like, they also underreported, it appears, the damage that Iran did to them when they struck Israel. We still don't know the extent of it, but it appears fairly significant. So, like, there's got to be at least some, I mean, pushback within the region to this kind of thing, I would hope.
I mean, we're all sort of probably, operating off of the same guesswork when it comes to Trump. I mean, whether it's you and me or the King of Jordan, I don't know if anyone takes it seriously or knows when we should start taking it seriously. It was last year that Trump talked about the, turning Gaza into a resort or whatever. And I remember at the time just thinking, like, again, I would love to see them try to do that, because it obviously sounds insane. Not only for its moral, implications, but just that the one part of Iraq, to talk about Iraq again, the one part of Iraq where you could have like McDonald's or whatever and walk around and, not worry about getting blown up was in the bubble that was the green zone.
You talked about this in Blowback. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And otherwise, and that's a much larger country, but in some sense, an even harder country to fight an insurgency. Hamas is fighting a pretty darn good insurgency against Israel right now. And the idea that anything in the near term could produce the conditions for, again, putting aside the just evil of the proposition, that could produce the conditions for what Kushner or Trump or I guess Blair would be aiming to do is ridiculous. I mean, people would get blown up every single day trying to build the Cracker Barrel or whatever. So that I don't see that happening. And I don't know what Blair brings to this other than the prestige of a former head of state, who, maybe the Hicks in the administration thinks sounds smart because he's British. I don't know. But like, I just don't know what he has no particular prestige in the actual region among like, populations or even leadership in the Middle East. So yeah, it would be very unlikely, I mean, to imagine any of this coming to fruition. What will continue, of course, is the war and the extermination campaign by Israel. And I think they're saying stuff like this just to almost convince probably their own audience and then the audiences in America that this will be over soon. Right. I think that's why you start talking about Burger
Trump
King
has been saying I want to wrap. He's obsessed with these imposing these self-imposed deadlines. He wants this done by the end of 2025. And what being done means is could be as barbaric as basically entire extermination, which is like what we're looking at here. I mean, like I'm a dog with a bone with this death toll thing, but it just drives me up a wall because I read the West, we read a packet in the news in the morning, and the Western press is 63K. They, like whatever. We've been lagging, and it's manufacturing consent for this genocide in ways that is perhaps the most pernicious piece of Israeli propaganda in the West right now, because it's across every outlet, because there's no verifiable information on the death toll. But like, use that figure because you don't have real figures. I get it. The press might do that. Immediate caveat needs to be, there have been analyses by Lancet and other showing that it's likely hundreds of thousands. It's part of why there isn't enough urgency in the public, and I'm not trying to say there would be a revolution here, but is because we don't know the truth. It's hundreds of thousands dead and more are dying.
I am a stickler about the death toll stuff as well. I do wonder if 63,000 doesn't upset or explode your conscience, whether 163,000 would. Right. And we do know that it's an unpopular policy to support Israel now among Democrats and independents. I think it's obviously a minority within Republicans, but across the board, it's unpopular. Does that matter? Probably not. I mean, as far as affecting policy, probably not. The Iran strikes were unpopular. They did them anyway. But yeah, I think you're right about the crack up that's happening, because it's been 2 years now. And that to me is why, especially someone like Trump would start to say, don't worry, we're wrapping it up soon. That phrase, even wrap it up, like the way to wrap it up. If he had the political or, whatever type of courage, he would wrap it up by cutting Israel off completely. And then they would, probably wither on the vine for a little bit until they had to really decide they didn't have the resources anymore to continue the extermination. But he doesn't want to do that. Or rather feels like he politically can't do that. And I'm sure he would get a wallop if he did, just like any Democratic president would. So he has to just keep asking pretty please to Netanyahu and say things like, oh, don't worry, it's only going to be another month or two, and then we'll have, a flowering of Western style, like a new Paris. So you think, it'll take like decades. It'll take decades to even clear the rubble from Gaza, let alone this idea of like Sim City style, like reskinning the map to make it look shiny and full of Western restaurants. So to me, it's a sign of desperation. And I think the Iran strikes were another sign of desperation, because they really, I think they realized that this is not really going to end well for Israel any more than it's obviously not that Israel is the victim, but it's not going to end well. It's a kind of death drive at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they're creating in this frenzy facts on the ground, which is an Israeli phrase, to try to cement greater Israel. I mean, one, by completely destroying the Gaza Strip and either ethnically cleansing or outright just killing basically all of the Palestinians there. And then the West Bank actions are increasingly deadly, violent, escalating. The approval of this E1 settlement plan we've been covering on the show, and trying to create facts on the ground to further foreclose the possibility of a Palestinian state, although obviously, Brendan, that the two-state solution is fictional and a stalling tactic, but even just like the diplomatic significance of a Palestinian state being recognized, they are sprinting to ensure that that's not possible. And I am optimistic when you say things like they're worried and it's desperate, but I also am not naive about what just sheer power and violence can achieve in a short period of time.
Absolutely. Same goes for America as well. I mean, I think we're living through the age of if there was decline before, free fall at this point. And it's you can be optimistic about certain aspects of that, but these types of states, whether it's a sort of lunatic ethnocracy like Israel or a dying empire like America, they don't go down without a fight. So then, of course, the concern is maybe they'll just, let her rip. And I think that is basically like Israel would have had a greater chance at Greater Israel if they had played this slowly and piecemeal over the next 50 years. I mean, they've already achieved half of Greater Israel, in as you say, with the facts on the ground. But instead, I think it's gotten to its terminus of like any kind of logical or strategic ethnic cleansing. And after October 7th, they just said, we can do whatever we want, not unlike what happened after 9/11 in America. And we saw how that turned out. We reversed whatever leverage we had in those countries through a series of ironic and or, blood-stained reversals. So, yeah, I mean, it does seem desperate, but that, as you point out, doesn't mean it's going to get any better anytime soon. They'll just grind on.
Lastly, Brendan, I do think it's interesting to examine how the Democrats are responding to this. Like the Torres interview is not a good look for him, and he comes off incredibly callous and sociopathic. Not hard for him to do. But we just headlined this story that this moderate Democrat in North Carolina is swearing off now and announcing pretty early on, in her race, probably to foreclose the idea of a primary challenger, I would imagine. I don't know the district that well, that she won't take AIPAC money. And you have like this exciting candidate that we've interviewed up in Maine, Graham Plattner, who is like putting no AIPAC basically to the forefront of his race. Like, and even a guy like Charlemagne the God, who's just kind of like an independent vibe guy on TV or on the radio, calling Jeffrey's AIPAC Shakur. The fact that AIPAC is becoming a pejorative, and it's not just Democrats. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene says what she says because she's one of the top three representatives / senators that take the most percentage of money from small dollar donations. Like, not saying she's not an anti-Semite, but her, Bernie, and AOC are the top three, and she's the only Republican calling out AIPAC. It's becoming a pejorative, and that, at the very least, domestically here in the U.S. is an improvement. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys talked about the Torres thing. It is a good, like, Adam's a buddy. I thought it was an interesting interview on both sides of that set. But Torres being this, just retreating into that like a gator, sunbathing, just like, just he couldn't, like he knew he couldn't blow up, and I'm sure he was thinking of like whatever staffer booked him on this and was imagining traps from the movie Saw to apply to them later, for in the moment that we realized this wasn't going to make him look hip and cool. But that lizard-like stance, I think, is incredibly alienating, and more people. I remember AIPAC was already becoming a pejorative because it was so linked with Republicans over the past 4 or 5 years at this point. Trump embracing Miriam Adelson, and just like I think a lot of Democrats, even if they quietly kept taking AIPAC money, they didn't mind accepting that it was now a Republican coded lobby for many people. But the extermination campaign in Gaza definitely, I think, has given certainly younger politicians an impetus to say, I never want to have to deal with this. Why would, okay, I'll take some flack for maybe being too sympathetic to the Palestinians. Maybe they'll call it genocide. Maybe they won't. That whole rhetorical war will probably be with us for a little while longer. But they have no reason to, if they're smart, to think, yeah, in 5 years, I don't want to have to be tarred with the fact that I took AIPAC money. And it's a non-starter, I think, if you're smart. Then you have people like Slotkin, who are, trying to in real time, transmogrify.
Right.
Exactly. And that's probably going to be unsuccessful. But yeah, it's good that it's become a pejorative. I hope it spreads to other forms of, how this policy sustains itself. And, just the general support for Israel, whether it's a lobby or whether it's our public figures, whether they take AIPAC money or not, it should probably soon become a stain on your record to have said anything supportive of this. I know that leading Democrat, I can't remember her name at the moment, you probably covered it. She said genocide and then she took it back.
Yeah, Catherine Clark. She said it to her constituents and then ran to like a Zionist publication and backtracked it. Yeah.
So you can see it happening in real time. The younger upstarts know, let's just have a clean slate. And the ones who are already, caught in this web at the top are trying to wriggle out of this in real time. So that in and of itself is a good sign. Yeah.
Not complete optimism in our conversation here, but we can leave it on that note. Brendan James, really appreciate you coming on, and everybody, as I keep saying, check out Blowback. Anything else you're working on that we should mention?
Well, I'm working with my buddy Felix I mentioned earlier. I am working on a mini-series with him, but it's about Metal Gear Solid, so I don't know how many Majority Report listeners would care about that, but we are putting it out this week.
We've got a bunch of nerds in the audience. They might be into it.
I would never call them nerds. Those aren't my words.
Well, I have to discipline them in some way.
I do the same with our listeners. But no, Blowback Season 6 is coming out September 20th. And it will be about the civil war in Angola, the Cold War showdown in Africa. We've never done a season about Africa before. It's incredibly rich vein and a fascinating story. So if you like Blowback already, please check your podcast feeds come September 20th. But if you would like a hopefully entertaining and compelling show about largely Cold War history and American shenanigans all over the world, check out Blowback, wherever you get your podcasts.
All right. Alex Hidell says, I will be listening, sir. So we already have one listener on board. Thanks so much, Brendan.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you coming on.
Well, thanks, Brendan.
All right, folks, quick break. And when we come back, we'll be joined by Amanda Seals. We are back, folks. We are with Amanda Seales. Sorry for the delay a little bit, but we figured out an audio solution, so you'll see Amanda on video, but she's audio coming through the phones. Amanda, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So glad to be able to talk to you a little bit about, what you've been up to. I know you were in the belly of the beast with the Jubilee stuff. How did that go?
Well, I think, the Jubilee stuff is one thing for everybody else who's done it, and it's a different thing for the version that I did. And I think that's worth pointing out because the other Jubilees have been a lot of just kind of like opposing sides, right? It's like liberal versus conservative, liberal versus oh my God, hearing myself back. Liberal versus I'm feeling very autistic right
it's
now.
Okay. Let's pause. We'll fix it. I'm sorry, guys. We'll pause for a sec, go to a break, and we'll come back. We are back, folks. Apologies for some of the audio issues, but this is what happens with leftist audio as it's described. We're working with what we've got here. We are back with Amanda Seales. Thanks so much for coming back on the show, Amanda.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Amanda Seales, obviously, comedian, actress, producer, host of the Small Doses podcast, and the latest... I don't want to say victim because you're not a victim here, but I do think like the Jubilee people are getting at a level of like, I don't know, some of cynicism and of like this reactionary thing they're trying to create as inflammatory content as possible between yours and also Mehdi Hassan, who was talking directly to like open fascists. I mean, these open white supremacists. And I know that you were like ostensibly debating conservatives, but it also was like, I don't know, it was directed towards making you almost like have to defend certain things. It's they're appealing to white supremacists increasingly is basically my contention. Okay, there's still an echo.
I would say yes.
Oh, no. Okay, sorry. No,
never
mind.
I would say yes. But I would also say this. My episode of Surrounded was a very particular setup, and it was by design for in my vision, because I wanted to, one, demonstrate someone who was not taking the position of the binary, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. I went on there as a Black radical. So that was one. I wanted to literally just demonstrate, here is somebody who is not fitting in the boxes that have been created, assigned, and upheld by mainstream media and, this U.S. joke of a government. But two, it was an inter-community conversation. And I think for a lot of folks who are not Black, they may have seen my episode and said, oh, I don't need to bother with this, or like, I don't need to pay attention to this one because like this isn't, and not even in a racist way, but just in like that's like a them conversation, not a us conversation. And I would actually pin you because Black people have been at the forefront of really trying to get the United States to live up to everything it claims that it is on paper, right? So we have always been in the middle of the fray. We've always been a part of that fight. So when you see that the colonization of, lands that we've seen all over the world has now very effectively come to Black minds and Black bodies, you should be on red alert. Like, wow, she sat in there with 20 Black people that were willing to, not even with MAGA hats and all the regalia, because you can kind of write that off when you see the rallies and stuff. You're like, okay, these are just
right
loonies. No, these were majority young people that felt very comfortable being on a show that they know is going to get millions of followers, spewing self-hating white nationalist rhetoric. And even if they don't believe it, they were willing to do it for the possibility of visibility or money. And that should concern everybody.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's about the pernicious nature also, I would say, of capitalism and how it can co-opt people into it quite easily. But it's about this attention economy too, where we had a little echo at the beginning. We fixed it. We're all good now. Just wanted to say that it might have my question may have kind of been muddled there. But the way that Jubilee and these algorithms and these other shows are really directing a lot of hatred towards people and seem to be designed to put to create the most intense reaction. That's what the algorithms are doing, whether it's the top of your feed on Twitter or whatever, or it's on YouTube, where they're increasingly okay with platforming people who, I don't know, 10 years ago, that would be that's beyond the pale. This is a Klansman. This is a Nazi person, or this person is saying insane things on camera, and that should kill their career. But no, it doesn't kill their career. It gets them ahead, because right now it's all about shock value and creating the most attention that you can with these corporations creating algorithms that incentivize that kind of thing.
I would agree with that. I'll also add that any of these pages who do not moderate their chats, who allow for their comment sections to be flooded and riddled with constant toxicity and nastiness and hatred, they're all a part of that as well. I mean, whether I go on Don Lemon or Sabby Sabs or you go in the chat of Jubilee, it's all the same. It's all the same. It's all filled with folks who are aligning with what that algorithm is all about. And that is creating rage, bait, and toxicity, because people respond to that. I mean, our brains, for some reason, this human brain responds to the negativity more than the positive. Like, I do my show, Views From Amandaland, once a week, every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern. And my moderators, my moderators, they don't play around. Do I get less views for that? Absolutely. Do I get less push to the algorithm? Absolutely.
Right.
So it's just, I think it's not even just Jubilee. I think that they are just a bigger version of what I'm seeing this YouTube internet space has become, which is it doesn't really matter what I'm saying or what the people in my chat are saying, as long as it's going to still get me money.
Exactly.
And I think that's trash. For the record, I did not get paid to go on Jubilee, because I see people
in various chats being like, she did this for a check. I was like, no.
Right. No, you didn't. I mean, we know this because Sam did it. But of course, like, I mean, that's some of the people that are picked for you and Mehdi it's different than for, when they have Sam on there. I guess
why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-evident. But Ben Shapiro.
Why won't you say it though? Because he's a white guy.
Right, because he's a white guy. Of course. I mean, another white guy here, though, Ben Shapiro, I don't know if you saw this, he reacted to your Jubilee. I want you to react to his reaction, right? This is
I have to take this person in?
You do not. You can veto it. And
I want to veto it, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay, go for it.
Because I think that we do the work for them when we platform them.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, I don't think any of these right-wing mouthpieces are going to live long in their work. They are all just a part of these empire systems of fascism. Can you name off the top of your head any radio hosts or like newspaper writers from like the Third Reich? Because I can't.
No, but I will say that part of, our show, right, what I think we try to do is get into the algorithm for these guys by making fun of them. It's a really powerful tool to mock these freaks because, first of all, but if you don't combat it, they have all of the advantages that we're describing. So you have to at least engage in some way, not saying we need to do right now, but because they have such a capture of like of the economy in this way because they just have more money on their side. It's the same way like, Bill O'Reilly or all these conservative influencers books get to the top of the charts because they just buy them all up, like the Heritage Foundation or something. And, best-selling author because it was rigged in their favor.
But I feel like when we choose these ministries, right? Because that's a choice. Like, we're going to do this on Majority Report to check this thing, right?
Yeah.
I feel like we also end up having to like create a balance, a melody, if you will, a harmony, if you will, in our lives. Because when, like, if I commit myself to do, like, people are like, will you ever go back? Will you go back? This is your lane. You should do this all the time. And I'm like, if I sat in the middle of 20 willfully ignorant fools all the time as like a lifestyle, and I didn't have anything else, like you would be on here like we just had Amanda Seales last week, and now she has gone to the other realm. Like, cross over. Like, I wouldn't be able to handle it. So I mitigate that, Emma.
And if for your own peace, if nothing else.
Yes.
So then let's just we'll talk then just Palestine really briefly while I have you. I mean, last time we had you on, that was the center of our conversation, and like a lot of some of the choices that you were making in your career to be very outspoken about Palestine and how you received some really, harsh reaction to it, and of course affects people's bottom lines. Well, now that we're a little further away from our conversation, like, what new do you have to share with us about how your activism has been like received?
I think, for many of us, I would say that Palestine has been the awakening, the re-radicalism, in some cases, the first radicalism. It's been a blessing, and it's really something that we will owe to those who've been martyred in Palestine forever, because that is so deeply dystopian that my awakening had to come from, seeing a physical, visible genocide every day, and then understanding how am I culpable in making this happen? How and then being responsible for how I can take the steps to no longer be culpable as much as possible, right? So, you start taking those steps by addressing your capitalism, how you engage in capitalism, your consumerism, how do you engage in consumerism? What, as a creative, as an artist, what art am I supporting? What art am I actually doing? So like, I have my one-woman show, What Would the Ancestors Say? I have a residency. I do it the first Saturday of every month at the People's Forum in New York City. So the next one is on September 6th. And I mean, this is a piece in which I talk about Palestine. I connect it to the United States, Black American experience and struggle in the United States. And the goal of it is to really use art to reconnect our empathy. I would say that at this point in my life, since I've spoken to you, I've just gotten even more aware, more informed, and also more empowered to help others who are genuinely curious become more aware and more informed. Because since we've spoken, Emma, I think you and I would agree that the shit has hit the fan for a lot more people in terms of just their seeing how
Overall,
the dots are connecting, you know?
Right. And how do you approach that? I mean, I have a devil on my shoulder that wants to say to some of these people, like, how long did this take? How could you just be getting here? And even, you know, sometimes the privileging, in my view, of like Western Jewish perspectives over that of Palestinians gets me frustrated. But you have, but there's also this balance of meeting people where they are. And I struggle with that, as I imagine you do, where there's this rage boiling beneath, but you also have to kind of maintain a level head of educating people.
Well, I'll tell you what, I did a lot of that on that Surrounded episode. I feel like I had a lot of level heading that was kept. But honestly, if folks come in a place of atonement versus arrogance, then it clears it all for me. Like if someone shows up with, I cannot believe I did not know about this, and I need to work 3 times as harder. I am so much more motivated knowing that I have been caught in the matrix this long. Then, you know, what are we going to do? These factions are shelling out millions and billions to keep people stupid. So it's not as if it's not like by accident that people don't know. It's just that when people come with like well, what did you expect me to do? Then I'm like, oh, go F yourself.
Right.
Go F yourself.
Right. Well, anything, Amanda, that you have coming up that you want folks to know about? I mean, obviously follow Amanda Seales on social media everywhere, as I do. What do you have coming up?
So I do my show, Views From Amandaland, every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, Amanda Seales TV. And we also are doing a summit at the TPF at the People's Forum, September 19th, 20th, and 21st, the Views From Amandaland Summit. It's called the Amandaland Summit because they call themselves Amandalanders. Your viewers call themselves majority reporters.
Yeah, they do actually.
This, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, shout out to the majority reporters. 2 of the events that we'll be having there will be open to the public. So one of them will be a live taping of Views From Amandaland, but the other will be a panel that I put together called Cracking Up the System. I actually want to do this like on a regular basis where I bring together 2 socially conscious comedians to talk to 2 organizers, because the work that organizers are doing needs to be spoken about, but sometimes it's so boring. And it's like not, you know what I mean? You're like, okay, I get it. So we have Davidson Boswell and Christina Brown, our comedians, and our organizers for this panel are Angelica Langdon and Claudia de la Cruz. So it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. So you can go to thepeoplesforum.org and get your tickets to either of those events, and that will be actually contributing to the People's Forum. So I hope to see you all there. I hope to see you all Saturday, September 6th at What Would the Ancestors Say? And I love to see you all here continuing to do this work. It's very necessary.
Appreciate you. I'm sorry for our audio issues. We'll have you on another time and we'll figure it out more.
No, and I'll be able to come on before and do the pre-text. You know, today I was not able.
But thanks so much, Amanda. Really appreciate your time today.
And Emma, you need to come on my show.
I would love to. Let's set that up after this. I'll text you.
Good.
Okay.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye, Amanda. All right. Sorry, guys. I know there was some tech stuff, but I wanted to make sure we got Amanda on because it had been a minute. How are we doing on sound now? We're good?
Yeah. Maybe so.
Matt's sweating through his shirt. It's good.
It's good.
Do you have that?
Maybe a bit suboptimal, but if I had to issue any sort of overall assessment of what that was, I would probably say something. Why isn't it showing up in my email?
Just search from me.
I think it's good.
it's good.
Okay. I feel like Matt and I never email, but like at like 11:30 on a weeknight, I'll just email him a sound drop that I want to incorporate into the board. Still using.
I think it's good.
I think it's good. I'm still using this free board that can only put like 12 things on there, and I just should ask Sam for the
We need to modernize
the
that.
MR card
Yeah.
so I can get a more on here. But appreciate you all. Thank you so much. We are gonna head into the fun half, but first, Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Yeah, Left Reckoning, a Sunday show. David and I are going to disclose a financial relationship that was previously secret.
Maybe we'll talk about that in the fun half a little bit.
and talk about how it's actually normal and good.
Yes.
To take $8,000 to learn how to do thumbnails. Being incubated. Okay, interesting. I love it. Yeah, patreon.com/Left Reckoning. If you want to help David and I try to get to the $8,000 a month club by being members of a podcast instead of just donors in a shadowy network.
All right. We will see you in the fun half.